This is a demonstration of the amazing capabilities that 123Sync has in interpreting, parsing, and integrating form email with ACT. So before we start, we would like to cover a couple of the basics. What we have here is a web server or a lead generation that sends an email to a local or a cloud mailbox. The emails usually look like this. They have a subject line, which is the blue part there. And then they have fields, and the fields are the red items here that have data. And the data can go from one line, or like we see on the note here, the data can be multi-line. When these email forms are received, they are first identified. Whether it's an email, just a standard email, or if it's a form. The next step is we parse the email. We go through the email and see what is it. And depending on how we parse it and on the settings, there really are two major decisions to make. So one of them is if it's a new contact that as we've received, we create the contact and then assign an activity and an opportunity to a user in ACT. Or in the second phase, we can do an update. We can actually find the contact and update the contact with the form data that we have received. So let's look at the email itself. The identification of the emails that we do is by the subject line. So we look at the subject line, and if it matches our pattern, we start parsing the email. So the step 2 is to parse the email. We go through all the fields and then find what has to be matched and entered into ACT. And third piece is we identify what type of form it is. And depending on the filtering mechanism that we've set up in 123Sync, we assign it to the correct ACT user. And part 4, we create an activity or an opportunity for this user in ACT to deal with this particular form that we have just received. In this demo, we're going to cover the 3 pieces that we support in 123Sync. So the demo will incorporate the following pieces. As the email is received by 123Sync, it will be processed. So if it's a sales query, we're going to select by the zip code. We're going to assign the actual sales query to a salesman in our organization. In this case, we filter by zip code. So if the zip code is between 0 and 3000, we give it to Ernst Anderson. If it's between 3 and 6, we give it to John Marshall. Between 6001 and 10,000, we give it to Jackie Spear. So each individual gets their sales lead depending on a zip code. Of course, this can be changed by you on the settings. The second environment we're going to do is a tech support environment where you have technicians that deal with a product or products, but everybody gets one lead at a time or one tech support issue at a time. So what we have here, we're going to have a round robin, so everybody gets the next support ticket. And the round robin, if he goes to the tech support Tom, it gets given to him, and then the next one that's received, it gets given to Paul, and the third one gets given to John. So when the last one is given, it starts again at Tom and Paul and John. So this is our round robin model. And the third methodology we support is if you get a lead, and depending on a type, we basically then just assign it to an individual. In this case, it'll be John Sedgwick. Just a little bit of an extension of what we support here. On a tech support environment that we've seen where each tech, you have individuals that specialize in particular segments of tech support. So we have, for example, by type, you can actually assign to these users in ACT the support ticket. So by just manipulating the fields on the form as well as setting the fields in 123Sync, you can now import automatically in the background without any human intervention and assign it to the correct people in your organization. While the reaction to our improvements into the email integration of 123Sync have been substantial, also the reviews and the feedback from our users have been absolutely incredible and rewarding for us. It's nice to see that our efforts are recognized by the ACT community. So let's get down to the demo now. What we're going to do now is create the sales delegator, the person that provides the leads to all our salespeople, depending on the zip code. So we go to Tools, Manage Users. I'm going to create a new user. Create new user. We're going to call it Sales Delegator. Gator. Go here. Don't need a password, and the delegator doesn't have to be active. So you're not using an ACT license to set this up. Click on Finish. So we have the Sales Delegator right here, and we click Close. So next, let's go to 123Sync. Click on Tools, Admin, and just refresh the users. That will 123Sync will go into ACT, refresh the users, and then exit. You need to restart it again. Now that we have restarted 123Sync, we can see that Sales Delegator resides right here. For the purpose of this demo, all we're going to do is do the email parsing and the Sales Delegator. So for the just check mark on the Sales Delegator so we know that it's actually running. So we look at here, and the username, we don't want to use the Sales Delegator as an ACT login, so we use the Chris Huffman login. Click on that, just go Chris Huffman, password, click on test, and say yes. So the Sales Delegator, we click on here and we say we want to just to do the emails. We just want to do the emails delegation. You can avoid all this and go straight to the email. Here you can set up the fields that you want to search for the data. But we go into the email integration settings. So we click Enable Email Integration and then just select the inbox. On this one is the inbox 1, which for us resides on the Outlook data here. And that will set up our basic first setup of 123Sync. Before we keep on going, let's just have a look at the emails we're going to receive with all the data. So let's open here, and this is our identifier, 123 synchronize sales query. And basically we have all the labels and everything right in here. So what we're going to do, just for the matter of going quick, just copy the subject line. Let's go to 123Sync and see what happens here. So we've set up the inbox and what we wanted to do. So now we're going to go to the inbox settings. We don't want to match it by sender email address. What we want to do is the parse body text on the web form. We put in the subject line right in here. And then what I like to do is go back to Outlook and then just copy the data from Outlook and then go back into 123Sync and click on the test button. The test tests our settings on all the labels. So we just paste it over here, and at the moment we have nothing going on. So nothing is there. So you can just click on close, and that will be saved. So now that we have set all the addresses and all the labels up, now we're ready to start playing with this. One thing about it is you can just click on test and you can see this is going to be the result of what comes out. We can also see that the zip code is being parsed properly. So now we can do some testing and then add the data over into ACT. If you don't know how to set up the fields, I suggest you go to the first video tutorial on the form parsing. We go into a lot of details on how to set up these fields to be parsed. So now that we are now into the parsing of the fields, and that is done. Let's go to the, after we parse the fields, what do we want to do? We can schedule an activity for this user. Say to do within 0 and immediately call this individual and close sale. We can create an opportunity at the same time, say new sales lead, and of course we actually get all the data from ACT to the processes and everything else about the stages as well as products. So it's getting one quantity of one product. So when it gets scheduled here and gets a schedule an opportunity, so now we have to decide with whom we want this opportunity to be scheduled with. So now we want to know who the sales delegator is going to be delegating to. And in order for us to access those delegations, we have to enable these users. So we go to Ernst Anderson, we go Jackie Spear and John Marshall. They don't want to sync, so what we do, we go to the process filter, we say on John Marshall, we say, okay, you don't want to sync, so we just say nothing here, nothing there, and Ernst Anderson. So they don't want to sync, they just want to have their leads actually integrated into ACT. So we have these users here, and those are the ones we're going to be addressing on our filtering mechanism. So we go back to email, and then we select by contact field value. That means that the zip code that we have here is going to, when it matches certain values, we're going to attach it to the ones, the users that we have enabled. So we go in here and just say add. So we go add equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Operand is less and equal to 3000, right? And then from here we go, this goes into Ernst Anderson. So click on add. So from here we go 3001, right? 3001, oh, that's 30, to 6000. 6000. And we just assign it to Jackie Spear. Click on add. Now 6001 and 10,000, which is probably there's no other zip codes above that, and we assign those to John Marshall. So what we've done now is set up a filter mechanism that, depending on the value of the zip code, activities will and opportunities and the record manager field will be assigned to these users. So if the zip code is between 0 and 3000, it goes to Ernst Anderson. Between 3001 and 6000 to Jackie, 6001 and 10,000 to John. So also if the user goes back and fills out the form again with something else and he already exists on the ACT database, we can do a schedule an activity and just go another to do and say user just re-entered data and contacting us. So a to-do will be scheduled depending on the zip codes to the particular individual in ACT. So before you run anything on a production system, make sure that you test properly. We just saw here one of our mistakes where we're actually missing a 0 from the zip codes because there are 30,000. There are 5-digit zip codes. So we have to go here and add the extra 0. So let's do that. Add the extra 0. Save. Also, one thing we like doing is run a couple of tests. And you can just, by going to the inbox or going to the folder and integration panel, you can select different inboxes to integrate with. Just select inbox 2 or anything that you want, and just use that as your little testing inbox instead of your full production inbox. Just make sure that you look at the integration starting date, because a lot of times when testing, we're running old leads or old emails. So just disable the enable auto update, because then it will always look at the same emails, and then just set the date to where you want it to start. In our case, let's just start July 1st, and that will do it. So you can just run the test. After you run the test, make sure that you enable this, so only the most recent emails are actually taken into consideration on the email integration. We've just run the integration, so let's just see what we got. And let's go check an email, put in what we're looking for. So what we see here is we created the record. So what the interesting part is, what do we do after the contact records? Okay, so we have John Chambers created here. So if we look at the contact access, you can see that John Marshall is the record manager. So that's the record manager that we set up on the settings by zip code. So this contact, the owner, has been assigned to John Marshall as the record manager, which is through the filter that we set up. So let's go to the activities. So we had an activity scheduled in case we added a new record. So here is the activity. So if you double click on it, it's actually scheduled with John Chambers. And if we click go schedule for, it's with John Marshall. So that's the same thing. It's being assigned by the filtering mechanism that we set up. Okay, and then we look at the opportunities, and we have a new opportunity that we have created. So the opportunity, we double click on the opportunity, and here it is. Basically, it's the opportunity that we set up in the 123 sync, and then we can look at the record manager is John Marshall, which is dictated by the filtering mechanism on the zip code. So let's go back to the contact. And the history, of course, we attach the email to the contact on the history. And this field here we have set up so it will create a note in Act. So let's look at the notes section here. And here's the note. So on the notes section, we actually parse it and create the notes. So everything else has been done just the way we wanted to do. So before we continue, I would like just to recap of what we have just done. We brought in an email and we processed with 123 sync, and we set up a sale, and it was a sales query, and according to a zip code, we then sorted it or assigned it to the correct person to schedule it with. So by zip code, we found a way of we have a way of distributing incoming emails and assigning it to the proper person in Act. In this case, it's a sales email, it's a sales query where we use the zip code. Now for the second part of our demonstration is to parse an email, a web form or a form, and then assign it on a round-robin fashion to a tech support person in the company. In this case would be Tom first, and then the second form that comes in would be to Paul, and the third one will be to tech support John. So, and when the fourth one comes in, it will start again at Tom, Paul, and John. So we're setting up a round robin assignment of incoming form queries. Let's see how it's set up in 123 sync. First, let's go into Act, and our preference, or my preference, is to create a separate inactive user that will take care of these actions. So let's go into the tools and manage users, and just create a new user. Create new user, and let's go tech support delegator. Okay, let's go next. We want it to be inactive, and just go finish. So now what we have in ACT is a tech support delegator. So this is the piece in ACT that we've done, and that's the first step. The next step is to get into 123 Sync, and as we can see, the tech support delegator is not defined. So what we're going to Tools, Administration, and just refresh all the users. That will go into ACT, find out to all the new users, and it will restart, and you have to restart 123 Sync. Now that we have restarted 123 Sync, we'll see here there's a tech support delegator, which we're going to check. And the three people that the tech support delegator will be working with is tech support John, Paul, and Tom. So the purpose of the settings is just to get the queries in and then assign them to the right people in a round robin fashion. So we just click here on all these users because we got to include these users in our environment. Since we're not going to be doing any integration with the tech support team, so we're just going to set these users as nothing's going to happen as far as the processing of any data for these for these individuals. So now we're ready to set up our tech support delegator. First thing we want to do, we want to log in as the admin. So the login is Chris Huffman. 1, 2, 3, and we test. Okay. So now we go to the process filter. We don't want to process contacts. This is a delegator that we set up. So we just do emails. So we're just going to be delegating emails and integrating the emails. And then we just go into the emails. And at the moment we got two fields, the email and the personal email. You can have up to 10 fields that could be emails or even any kind of field in ACT. So we go into the email integration settings. We want to enable these. Then click on the inbox selector. In this case, we're just going to go back to our inbox 1 because we have an email there that we're going to use as a sample. Once we got set up, now we have the inbox settings. And here is the important part. Here we're going to be doing the same, very much the same way as before. We're going to parse the web form. Before we start setting up the web form or the web settings, let's just look at a couple of things. What we have here in our sample, we have the sales query, and then we have the tech 123 sync tech request. So this would be the tech support request. And of course there's a zip code, but because we've actually designed all our forms on our website to have the same labels, the forms are very much identical. The only difference is the identifier, which in this case would be 123 sync tech request. So this identifier, so we're going to do something in 123 sync that makes life a lot easier for our users. So back into 123 Sync, we can start setting up the fields to parse the web submission. What we have is a web submission that is identical. So the sales, not identical, but all the fields are well defined. So what we take here is we have the sales delegator that has all the fields that are already set up, and the tech support delegator has nothing set up. The only difference between these two forms is the subject line. So what we're going to do, we copy and paste the subject line here, and then let's just go to the sales delegator. If you right click and you got tools, you can export all the fields to a file. So let's call it 111A fields 111. So it comes up on our listing here. So that will export all these fields that have been set up. So if you go to tech support delegator, just click here and say import the fields, and that will import those fields. So that's over there. So now the import done. So now you have all these fields already defined here that can actually automatically be brought back into ACT. So so it's very easy once you set up that first set of fields. It's very easy to copy and paste or create new delegators or parsing mechanisms in 123 Sync. Well, that was easy. So now we have all the fields already set up. You must always test it. So click on the test and run the test and make sure that you get the results, that all the fields are actually properly mapped before you start actually using the product. So let's go to our post email parsing action. So now it brings it in. So what do we want to do? Do we want to schedule an opportunity and or an activity? So here we're going to schedule an activity, and we have a tech support activity here. New tech support request. So this way, a tech support activity gets assigned to the right person. In our case, we will not schedule an opportunity to a poor tech support individual. So now let's go to the strategy. On the strategy, we want to say, okay, it's going to be a round robin. So what we provided is a bunch of what we call prospects for the round robin. And in our case, we really are interested in tech support John, Paul, and Tom. So what's going to happen here is John will be processed first, Paul second, and Tom third. So you can also change the order number of these, and you can say, look, I want to set up this user as the last one that was processed. So we can say yes. So the next one to be processed is going to be John, and then Paul, and then Tom. So what we have done now, we have created a round robin web query delegator, and in our case for the tech support. So you can do that for as many users as you want and include as many people as you possibly want. So now we come into this third part of our demonstration, is how do we just get an email or a web form and just parse it and assign it to an individual in ACT. It's quite easy. We're going to go take a little bit more on the complex side, but follow me and you'll like it what we'll do. So let's get back into 123 Sync and see how we can set up something that where John Sedgwick can actually get email queries or web form queries attached to contacts he's dealing with. So we can go to John here and we can see that he's already synchronizing the contact and calendar on his ACT with Exchange. So if we look at the email, he's already integrating his inbox and the sent items into ACT. So all the options really are exhausted as far as form parsing and get that brought into John's mailbox. So how do we set up a user that will parse the form and then just put it into John's working environment? So to do that, we just go back into ACT, go to Tools, Manage Users, and we add a John Sedgwick user. So we'll create a new user. We call it a JS Sedge form import form query. That will create a user in ACT with these details. We're just making them inactive and then just click on finish. So now we've done that. We get into 123 Sync. Of course, we're going to click on Tools, Administration, Refresh Users. So 123 Sync will go into ACT, find the new users, and then refresh them into our list. So when it does that, we exit and we restart 123 Sync. With 123 Sync restarted, now we see that the John Sedge form query is now defined on the list of users. So we can click here, and let's look at something quite interesting here. You can see here is John Sedgwick. That's how he logs in. So we can test on John Sedgwick and see if he'll succeed to log in into ACT. And the form query, you really want the individual to log in as John as well. So what we do, we just copy from here the username, copy to the next one, just paste it, paste the password, and now we're all set. So for this individual here, what we want to do is just integrate the emails. So now we're setting this just for an email integration. And at the same time, so now we go straight to email. We ignore everything else, go to the email, and we have the fields that we're going to do. And then, of course, we enable email integration. And of course, we only want to look at the singular inbox one. And that's when we're keeping all these forms. So we go here and say inbox one. So now we've set up how to get into the inbox one and retrieve the email settings. Now with the inbox set, we have to decide how the field of the record manager in ACT. We don't want, in this case, that JSedge form query to be the record manager, which is by default. So we can change which record, what we want, who do we want as a record manager when it gets into ACT. So we click on select user, and we just select here, select this user, and that becomes your record manager. So now anything that comes from JSedge form query comes under the record manager as John Sedgwick. So for the inbox settings, same as before, you click on the web form, and we paste the subject line of the web form, which is 123 sync shipping request and access. And in the same way that we've done before, we actually go here and ask, okay, how do we want to do this? And we have a set of fields, since our forms are the same on all the websites. So we click on import, we import the field that we already set up. So now we set up all the fields for parsing. We can always test, can always grab something from the Outlook mailbox here, copy from here, and then click on test, and then just paste it and then test it. Oh, it's going to come this way. So now what we've done is set up already the form very easily. It's already set up. Everything is actually matched. So there on the post email parse actions, we can schedule an activity like a to-do for John and saying call regarding shipping. That's a call. They can set the call, so when he gets a form, he can call the person about shipping. And the owner strategy, we're just going to use the email record manager that is defined as right here. So we're not going to do any strategy as far as the email parsing strategy here. So we're now set up that everything comes. So we enable this. So we set up now John Sedgwick is fully integrated with his inbox and with all the emails and syncing with Exchange. As well, we can assign forms, make sure that is integrate emails only. We can assign forms that will actually be parsed and then assigned to John Sedgwick. And not only that as an email, but also we can schedule an activity when those forms come in with John Sedgwick, so he can look through his activities. And all this is done in the background while 123 Sync is running and integrating all the emails. Wow, that was a lot longer than I expected. This concludes our demonstration of the form integration of 123 Sync. It is a truly very powerful, very versatile, very expandable, just about everything that you need to form integration from web submissions into your ACT database. Everything is done in the background, is automatic. You just set it up and then just let it run. Again, this is Tom from 123 Sync. Thank you for listening to us, and hope you enjoy our product.